A businessman known for his coldness keeps his routine under absolute control within the company. Everything changes when a new cleaning lady breaks the pattern with an unexpected attitude. Undaunted, she treats him naturally, ignoring the power that everyone else fears. And this simple detail begins to shake everything he took years to build. If you like stories of love and romance, watch until the end. You won't regret it. Subscribe to this channel and leave your comment saying where you are listening to this beautiful story from. We continue. The morning always began the same way. Rafael Almeida Brandt woke up at 5:30, as precise as the Swiss watch he had inherited from his grandfather. The routine was mathematical, predictable, immutable. A cold shower for exactly 8 minutes, black coffee without sugar, financial news from Asia still fresh on the tablet screen. At 6:45, the driver was already waiting at the entrance of the residential building in Vila Nova Conceição, and at 7:15, Rafael crossed the revolving doors of the mirrored building on Avenida Faria Lima that housed Brandt Capital, the investment management firm he had transformed in just 8 years, into one of the most respected in the country. 37 years old, single, with no apparent vices beyond work. Rafael had built a silent empire made of impeccable spreadsheets, surgical decisions, and a frightening ability to predict market movements before they happened. His subordinates feared and admired him in equal measure. He never raised his voice, never lost his composure, never showed weakness. His brown eyes, almost black, had the coldness of someone who had learned early on that emotion was a luxury for those who did not intend to win. The office occupied 3 floors of the building. Glass, steel, Carrara marble. Everything was designed to convey exactly what Rafael wanted the world to see: power, solidity, distance. The meeting rooms were named after financial capitals: London, New York, Tokyo, Zurich. He spent more time there than anywhere else. Weekends were just days without traffic to arrive earlier. Holidays were opportunities to work without interruptions. On that Monday in March, when Marina Silva first crossed the reception area wearing the navy blue uniform of the outsourced cleaning company, Rafael didn't even notice. He was in a video conference with investors from Frankfurt, analyzing European market volatility after the elections. Marina was 26 years old, lived in Itaquera, and woke up at 4 in the morning to take 2 buses and a subway to the Faria Lima station. She came from a simple family, the daughter of a seamstress and a bus driver retired on disability after an accident. She had studied until high school, had been working since she was 16, and carried in her light brown eyes a light that life had not yet managed to extinguish. The cleaning crew worked at strategic times when the executives were away, but Brandt Capital operated at an uninterrupted pace, and it was impossible not to cross paths with someone in the corridors. Marina cleaned with attention, but without haste. She talked to the security staff, greeted the receptionists, and smiled at the hurried interns. There was a naturalness in her that completely clashed with the environment. While everyone seemed timed and tense, she moved as if she had all the time in the world. It was on a Thursday, almost 3 weeks after her arrival, that it happened. Rafael had just come out of a particularly exhausting meeting with the board. They had argued for 2 hours about the acquisition of a financial technology startup. He defended the purchase. Other members wanted caution. In the end, his vision prevailed, as it almost always did. But the political strain had left him irritated by Rafael's standards, which meant a slight tension in his jaw and steps a bit faster than normal. It was almost 9 at night. The floor was practically empty. He was heading toward the private elevator with his Italian leather briefcase in one hand and his cell phone in the other, checking emails, when he almost collided with someone. Marina was with a cleaning cart reorganizing the products. She turned quickly, but without that exaggerated shock he usually provoked in people. Just a natural movement, almost like a dance. "Oops, sorry," she said with a light smile. "I always leave this cart in the wrong place." Rafael stopped. Something in her tone, in the absolute lack of ceremony, caught him off guard. She didn't look away, didn't freeze, didn't stutter a formal apology. She just smiled, as if she were talking to anyone. "No problem," he replied, and felt his own voice sound strange, too formal for the situation. Marina tilted her head, observing him with genuine curiosity. "You work late every day, don't you? I always see you leaving when everyone is already going home." The question was simple, but it carried an observation that no one had ever made. People noticed his decisions, his results, his position. No one noticed his hours. No one cared if he worked late. It was expected. It was part of the image. "Work demands it," he said, and realized how automatic the answer sounded. "It must be tiring," she commented without pity, just stating a fact. "I stay late some days too, but at least I stop to have a coffee, talk to the security guys. I think it helps, makes the time pass better." Raphael was left without an answer. There was something disconcerting about that conversation. She wasn't being invasive or disrespectful, just human. She spoke to him as if he was someone normal, not the CEO of Brandt Capital, not the man who moved millions with a signature. "Maybe I should try that," he said, and he didn't know where that answer came from. Marina laughed, a light and genuine sound. "Look, the security staff are good people, so Mario tells the funniest stories from the years he worked at a bank. It's worth it." She grabbed the cart and began to walk away, throwing over her shoulder, "Good night, okay? Get some rest when you get home." Raphael stood still in the empty corridor, watching her walk away with that relaxed way of hers, and realized he was holding his forgotten cell phone in his hand, the screen already dark. When he entered the elevator, he pressed the ground floor button with more force than necessary, as if he wanted to erase that moment of distraction. But he couldn't. In the following days, he found himself noticing things that were previously invisible. Marina cleaned the Tokyo meeting room, humming softly, something that sounded like samba. She always greeted everyone, from the newest intern to the CFO, with the same open smile. She had a habit of adjusting the paintings that were crooked on the walls, even though it wasn't her responsibility. She wore a discreet perfume, something with citrus notes that lingered in the air after she passed. Raphael tried to ignore it. He went back to concentrating on reports, market analyses, and quarterly projections. But there was a crack in the perfect routine, a flaw in the system that had always worked so well. He began to notice that he was circulating on floors he usually delegated to others. He invented reasons to leave his office more often. He checked documents in sectors that had assistants for that purpose. And always in some way he crossed paths with her. Marina didn't seem to notice, or if she did, she didn't show it. She continued with that irritating and, at the same time, strangely comforting naturalness. Sometimes they exchanged greetings, other times just a nod. She never forced conversation, never got too close, never crossed the boundaries of what was appropriate. But there was something about her that destabilized Raphael in a way he couldn't name. 2 weeks after that first encounter in the hallway, something happened that would change everything. Brandt Capital held a quarterly internal event, a kind of corporate happy hour to celebrate results and maintain team morale. Raphael always appeared out of obligation, stayed for half an hour, gave a brief speech about goals, and left. It was protocol, part of the image. But on that Friday, the event was different. The cleaning company had also been invited, in an HR initiative for the appreciation of all collaborators. Raphael thought the idea was unnecessary, but did not interfere. It wasn't the kind of detail that deserved his attention. When he arrived at the event hall of the building itself, 2 hours after it started, the atmosphere was already lively. Music, non-alcoholic cocktails, overlapping conversations. He greeted some directors, nodded to analysts, and maintained his posture. He was mentally calculating how much longer he needed to stay when he saw her. Marina was near the window, talking to 2 cleaning colleagues and a young man from the IT department. She wore a simple dark blue dress, nothing extravagant, but it defined a slim waist and highlighted her olive skin. Her hair, which he always saw tied in a practical bun, was down, falling in natural waves over her shoulders. She was laughing at something the IT guy had said, with that same spontaneity as always. Raphael felt something strange in his chest, a pang he couldn't identify. Jealousy? Impossible. Curiosity? Maybe. Or something more disturbing that he refused to name. He tried to look away, but he couldn't. And then, as if she felt the weight of his attention, Marina turned her head, and her eyes met his. For a second, the entire hall seemed to fall silent. She didn't look away. She just held his gaze, with that disconcerting calm, and then she smiled. Not the formal smile people gave the boss, a smile of recognition, from someone who truly saw someone. Raphael gave a slight nod, and she reciprocated. And then she went back to her conversation with her colleagues, as if that moment had no weight at all. But for him it did. He left the event 15 minutes later, earlier than planned, with the uncomfortable feeling that he had fled from something. In the car, on the way home, he remained silent while the driver navigated the Faria Lima traffic. When he arrived at the apartment, he ignored the dinner the housekeeper had left prepared and went straight to his office. He tried to work, review contracts, and analyze proposals. But the image of that smile, of those eyes that saw him without fear and without reverence, wouldn't leave his head. Rafael Almeida Brandt, the man who controlled millions, who never lost focus, who had transformed discipline into art, realized with growing discomfort that there was something he could not control. And that something had a name, a face, and worked cleaning the floors of the company he had built. For the first time in years, Raphael went to sleep without being absolutely sure of what he would do the next day. And for the first time in a much longer time, he did not have a peaceful night's sleep. The weekend was too long and too short at the same time. Raphael tried to maintain his routine: gym on Saturday morning, reviewing reports in the afternoon, dinner alone in the silent apartment. On Sunday, he woke up with the intention of going to the office, but he stood still in the living room watching São Paulo stretch out through the 23rd floor window, and for the first time, he questioned the meaning of that meticulously organized life. He had everything: enough money for 3 lifetimes, an apartment that looked like a magazine cover, imported cars he barely drove, respect in the market, fear from competitors, and a loneliness so deep he had learned to call it peace. But since that look at the event, since that smile that asked for nothing and offered nothing beyond recognition, something inside him had begun to crack. On Monday, Raphael arrived at the office 40 minutes late, something that never happened. The driver commented, surprised, that the traffic was actually light. Raphael just nodded without explanation. He couldn't say he had stood in the shower for too long, thinking about things he shouldn't be thinking about. During the morning, he feigned normalcy. Meeting with the risk analysis team, approval of new investments, a call with the law firm that handled regulatory issues, everything working as always on the outside. On the inside, he was distracted. At 3 in the afternoon, he left his office with the excuse of needing to check something in the dead files on the 12th floor. He didn't need to. He had assistants for that, but he left anyway. He found Marina in the hallway of the 13th floor, mopping the marble floor with rhythmic movements, headphones in her ears. She didn't see him immediately. Raphael stopped, watching the scene with an attention that bordered on the ridiculous. Her movements were almost a dance, efficient but light. She worked with dedication, but without that desperate urgency he saw in so many people. She seemed peaceful. When she finally looked up and saw him, she took out one earbud, smiling. "Hey there, working at 3 in the afternoon today, you're improving." He laughed. It was a short laugh, almost a sigh, but it was genuine. "I'm trying to follow your advice." "What advice?" "To not work so much." Marina leaned the handle of the mop on the floor, tilting her head with that curiosity he was beginning to recognize. "Oh yeah, and are you managing it?" "Not really," he admitted, and didn't know why he was being honest. "Yeah, I figured." She went back to mopping but continued talking. "People like you don't switch off easily, do they? I bet even when you're at home, you're thinking about work." "How do you know what kind of person I am?" Marina shrugged. "Observation. I've worked here for almost a month and you're always the first to arrive and the last to leave. I've never seen you stop to talk to anyone. Even at the party, you just stood there, isolated, going through the motions." Raphael felt a strange discomfort. Being seen that way, dissected with such simplicity, was disturbing. "And is that a bad thing?" "It's neither bad nor good, it's just lonely." She finished mopping the area and grabbed the cart. "But anyway, everyone knows what they do with their own life, right?" She was about to walk away when he spoke without thinking. "Do you like working here?" Marina stopped and turned. There was surprise in those light eyes. "It's a job. It pays the bills. The people are good people for the most part. It's not the dream of my life, but it's not a nightmare either." She tilted her head. "Why the question?" "Curiosity." "Oh yeah?" She crossed her arms, amused. And what is your life's dream then, since you're curious about others? Raphael opened his mouth, then closed it. He had no answer. When was the last time someone had asked him that? When was the last time he had asked himself? I don't know, he said finally. And the honesty of that answer was almost painful. Marina held his gaze for a long moment, and something passed between them. A silent understanding. She nodded slowly. It's okay not to know. I think most people don't know either. They just pretend they do. And then she was gone, leaving Raphael alone in the hallway with a sense of emptiness greater than when he had arrived. The following days were a silent torture. Raphael found himself looking for her without even realizing it. He detoured from meetings to circulate through the floors. He invented reasons to stay late, knowing that was the time she worked. And when he saw her, when they exchanged those brief and apparently insignificant conversations, he felt something he hadn't experienced in years. He felt alive. Marina, for her part, began to notice as well. She wasn't an idiot. She noticed the lingering looks, the encounters that seemed too casual to be casual, and she felt something she shouldn't feel. That man was dangerous. Not because he was cruel or a bad person, but because he represented everything she had learned to distrust: power, money, control. He was the type of man who, in her experience, saw people like her as invisible. But Raphael didn't treat her as invisible, and that was the most dangerous thing of all. She tried to keep her distance. She responded politely but without prolonging conversations. She avoided being alone with him. But it was difficult, because every time she looked into those dark eyes, she saw something beyond the cold posture. She saw loneliness. She saw someone asking for connection without knowing how to ask. And Marina had always been weak for people who needed help. It was on a Wednesday, almost 6 weeks after her arrival, that everything changed for good. Raphael had stayed late, as always, but this time it wasn't work. It was just an inability to go home. The empty apartment suffocated him. So he stayed in his office, looking at the city lights below, thinking of nothing and everything. It was almost 10 at night when he heard footsteps in the hallway. He turned, expecting to see the security guard, but it was her. Marina had stopped at the door, surprised to find him there. I thought everyone had already gone. I thought that about you too. I swapped shifts with Saida. She had a doctor's appointment tomorrow morning. Marina hesitated at the door. I can clean later if you're still using the room. No, come in, I was just leaving. But he didn't move, and neither did she. Marina entered, pushing the cart, but there was a tension in the air that hadn't existed before. She began to organize the cleaning products, but her movements were less fluid, more self-conscious. Are you okay? She asked suddenly, without looking at him. The question caught him off guard. Why? Because you're here at 10 at night looking out the window instead of being at home. Now she looked at him. And because in the last few days you seem different. Different how? Marina sighed, dropping the cloth she was holding. Look, it's none of my business, okay, but you look tired. Not tired of working. Tired of, I don't know, living. The observation was so precise, so accurate, that Raphael felt as if he had been punched. He didn't answer. He didn't know how to answer. Marina approached hesitantly. She stood about 2 meters from him, but she seemed closer. Sorry, I talk too much sometimes. My mother always says that. No, Raphael said, and his voice came out hoarse. You don't talk too much. You talk right. Silence. The city pulsed outside. Lights, cars, lives happening. And inside that room, nothing moved. Can I ask you a question? Raphael turned to her completely. Sure. Why are you so light? How can you work in a place like this, do what you do, and still seem like nothing weighs on you? Marina laughed, but it was a sad laugh. You think nothing weighs on me? You seem happier than anyone here. Happy? She shook her head. I wake up at 4 in the morning. I take crowded transport. I clean the bathrooms of people who earn in a day what I earn in 3 months. I get home at 11 at night, crash into bed, and do it all over again the next day. She held his gaze. But I choose not to let that destroy me, because if I let it, I lose. And I don't like losing. How do you do that? I remember that life is bigger than work, that I am not what I do, I am who I choose to be. Marina took a step closer. And you? Do you remember that sometimes? Raphael felt his chest tighten. No, I forgot how to do that. Then maybe it's time to learn again. They were too close now. Raphael could smell her citrus perfume, see the golden reflections in her light brown eyes. His heart was beating too fast, unregulated. Marina, he said, and her name came out like a confession. Yes? I don't know what I'm doing. She smiled, and there was sadness there, but also understanding. No one knows, Raphael, we just pretend. He laughed, a broken sound. And then, without thinking, without calculating consequences, without measuring risks, he did something he would never do. He reached out and touched her face, lightly, with his fingertips. Marina closed her eyes just for a second, and when she opened them, there was something different there. Fear, perhaps, or desire, or both. We shouldn't, she whispered. I know. It will go wrong. I know. Then why? Because I'm tired of doing everything right and feeling nothing. Marina held his hand still on her face, and for a moment they stayed like that, two completely different worlds touching with care, as if any sudden movement could break that fragile instant. She was the one who pulled away first, breathing deeply, trying to regain control. I need to finish here, she said, and her voice came out trembling. I know. And you need to go home, rest. I know. But neither of them moved, until Marina, with visible effort, turned and went back to the cleaning cart. Her hands trembled as she picked up the cloth. Raphael stood watching, paralyzed between staying and going. Raphael? She didn't look at him. Yes? Tomorrow, we pretend this didn't happen, okay? He closed his eyes. He nodded, even though he knew she wasn't looking. Okay. And then he left, because staying would be crossing a line from which there would be no return. But when he got to the car, when the driver asked if everything was okay, Raphael realized he was trembling. And he realized that for the first time in years, he was feeling something he couldn't control, couldn't plan, couldn't transform into a strategy. He was feeling everything, and it was terrifying and wonderful at the same time. Pretending it didn't happen was easier said than done. Raphael discovered this the next morning, when he arrived at the office and had to force himself not to look for her. He stayed in his office, going through meetings like an automaton, signing documents without really reading them, listening to presentations without absorbing the content. At lunchtime, Marcelo, the CFO, and one of the few people Raphael considered close to a friend, commented, "You're strange today. Did something happen?" "I'm tired," Raphael replied, and it wasn't a lie. "Tired? You?" Marcelo laughed. "The man who works 18 hours a day without complaining? Who are you and what have you done with Raphael?" Raphael didn't find it funny. He just went back to looking at the report in front of him, even without seeing the words. Marina, for her part, also struggled with her own promise. She arrived at work with the determination to keep her distance, to treat everything as a moment of weakness that would not be repeated. But every time she passed his floor, every time she saw the closed door of his office, she felt a tightness in her chest that she couldn't ignore. At night, when they met in the hallway by chance, it was as if the air became denser. They greeted each other with quick, formal nods and went opposite ways. But Raphael felt his heart race, and Marina trembled inside. 2 days passed like this, forced distance, cold politeness, looks that didn't meet. On the third day, Raphael broke. It was 7 in the evening. He knew she was working on the 14th floor. He knew because he had discreetly checked the cleaning team's schedule, and he hated knowing that he was acting like an obsessed teenager. But he went anyway. He found her in the break room, organizing the cabinets after cleaning. Her back was turned, putting away products. When she heard the footsteps, she turned, and upon seeing him, her face went through several expressions in seconds: surprise, recognition, and something that looked like relief. "Hi," she said softly. "Hi." Silence. "We're not managing it, are we?" Raphael leaned against the doorframe, keeping his distance, but there was a surrender in his posture. Marina sighed, closing the cabinet. "No?" "I tried, I swear I tried." "I did too." She approached slowly. She stopped 1/2 meter from him. Up close, Raphael could see the exhaustion in her eyes, but also the same restlessness he felt. "What are we going to do?" she asked, and there was fear in her voice. "I don't know, but continuing to pretend I don't feel anything isn't working." "And what do you feel?" The question was a challenge, a plea for honesty. Raphael took a deep breath. I feel like when you're not around, I'm looking for you. I feel like when you smile, the day is less heavy. I feel like you remind me that there is life beyond spreadsheets and meetings. He held her gaze. And that terrifies me, because I don't know how to deal with it. Marina bit her lip, emotional. Raphael, I clean the floors of your company. You own all of this. We live in completely different worlds. So what? So what? This isn't a fairy tale. In real life, these differences matter. People will judge, they will talk, they will turn this into something dirty. Do you care what people think? I care what it can do to us. She took a step closer. I don't want to be the woman people say is with you out of interest, and you don't want to be the guy people think is taking advantage. So we let fear decide. Marina closed her eyes. It's not just fear, it's reality. Raphael reached out, touched her face again as he had that night. And this time she didn't pull away, she just rested her own hand over his. Give me a chance, he asked, and his voice came out hoarse. A chance to prove that this can work. How? Let's go slow, just the two of us. No one needs to know yet. We get to know each other better outside of here as two normal people. Marina laughed, but there were tears in her eyes. You are not a normal person, and I'm not from your world either. Then show me your world, and I'll show you who I am beyond this place. She looked at him for a long moment, and Raphael saw the internal battle happening in those light eyes. Reason against feeling. Fear against desire. Finally, she nodded. Okay, but slow and in secret, at least for now. Raphael felt a wave of relief so intense it almost unbalanced him. Slow, I promise. She smiled, still with tears in her eyes, and pulled away. Now get out of here before someone shows up and starts asking questions. When can I see you again, outside of here? Call me. I'll leave my number with the receptionist tomorrow. And then she was gone, leaving Raphael alone in the break room with his heart beating so hard he could hear it in his own ears. The next day, Raphael took the paper with her number and kept it as if it were a precious document. He waited until night to call. When she answered, with that voice he already recognized, he felt a teenage nervousness he hadn't experienced in decades. They made a date for a Saturday. Nothing too public. Nothing that could generate comments. A discreet coffee shop in Pinheiros, far from Raphael's circles and Marina's neighborhood. When the day arrived, Raphael changed his clothes 3 times before leaving. Dark jeans, a light shirt, no tie, trying to look normal, trying not to look like the CEO of Brandt Capital. Marina was sitting at a corner table when he arrived, already with a coffee in front of her. She wore jeans and a sea-green blouse that highlighted her eyes. Her hair was down, and she looked nervous. Hi, he said, sitting down. Hi, I thought you were going to give up. I thought about giving up about 10 times on the way here. She laughed, and the tension eased a bit. They talked for hours. Raphael discovered that she liked to read, that she dreamed of going to college for literature one day, that she had helped her mother with the bills since her father got sick. He learned that she had a younger brother who was trying to get into a technical school. That she woke up at 4 in the morning, but on Sundays she slept until 10 and thought that was a luxury. Marina discovered that Raphael had grown up under the pressure of his father, a rigid businessman who had died of a heart attack at 58. That he had built Brandt Capital as a way to prove something to a man who was no longer there to see it. That he had no real friends, only professional contacts. That he didn't remember the last time he had truly laughed at something. That's sad, she said, holding her empty cup. It's the life I chose. No, it's not. It's the life you trapped yourself in. Marina held his hand over the table, but it doesn't have to stay that way. Raphael intertwined his fingers with hers, and the simple gesture had more weight than any contract he had ever signed. When they said goodbye, it was already night. Raphael offered a ride, but she refused. Slow, remember? No one can see us together yet. He agreed, but he didn't like it. He wanted to walk with her through the streets, get into the car with her, not hide. But he understood, or tried to understand. The meetings became a routine, always in discreet places, always with care. A coffee here, a park there, a walk through Ibirapuera when there were few people. They talked about everything, laughed at silly things, and with each meeting, the connection grew deeper. At work they maintained their distance, but the looks became more intense, and people began to notice. It was Juliana from reception who first commented to a colleague. "Don't you think Dr. Raphael is different? More, I don't know, less serious?" "Could he be dating?" the colleague speculated. And then, inevitably, someone saw. One of the analysts leaving a bar in Pinheiros passed Raphael and Marina sitting in a square, talking softly, too close to be just friendship. The analyst didn't say anything that night, but on Monday he mentioned it to another colleague, who mentioned it to another, and the gossip began to spread like wildfire. Raphael noticed the change on Tuesday. Sidelong glances, conversations that stopped when he passed. Even Marcelo pulled him into a private room. "I need to ask you a question, and I want you to be honest with me." Raphael already knew what was coming. "Go ahead and ask. Is there something going on between you and Marina, the cleaning lady?" The silence was answer enough. Marcelo ran his hand over his face. "Man, do you know what this can cause? People are already talking, and they're not being kind." "What are they saying?" "That she's taking advantage, that you're having a midlife crisis, that this is inappropriate, unethical, dangerous for the company's image." Raphael felt anger rising. "And what do you think?" "I think you're an adult and you know what you're doing, but I also think you need to think about the consequences. For you, for her, for the company." That night, Raphael met Marina at a cafe that had become their spot. She already knew. She saw it in his eyes. They found out, didn't they? There was no way to hide it forever. Marina took a deep breath, holding her cup tightly. "And now? Now we decide what we want to do." Raphael held her hand. "I'm not going to hide you. I'm not going to pretend this doesn't exist. But I need to know if you really want this, because it's going to get difficult." "Do you think I don't know it's going to get difficult?" She had tears in her eyes. "Do you think I don't know that people will destroy me? That they'll say I'm a gold digger, that I'm after your money, that I'm an opportunist? Then we stop here, before it gets worse. Is that what you want?" Raphael closed his eyes. "No, it's the last thing I want." "Then what's the way out?" "The truth, we own it. Face whatever comes together." Marina let out a wet laugh. "You make it sound so simple." "It's not simple, it's going to be a mess, but hiding isn't working either." He squeezed her hand. "Marina, I spent my whole life doing what was expected, what was right, what was safe, and in the end it was empty. You made me feel alive again, and I'm not going to give that up out of fear of what they'll think." "And if I give up?" The question was like a stab. Raphael let go of her hand, recoiling. "Do you want to give up?" Marina was crying openly now. "I don't know, I'm afraid, Raphael, afraid of losing you, afraid of getting hurt, afraid of finding out that this was all just a fantasy." "Look at me." He waited until she looked up. "This isn't a fantasy. What I feel for you isn't a fantasy. And I know it's scary because it's scary for me too, but I'd rather try and risk it than spend the rest of my life wondering, what if?" Marina wiped her tears with the back of her hand. "Okay, we try, but for real, no hiding, no lying. For real, I promise." They left the cafe holding hands. And for the first time, Raphael didn't look around to see if anyone was watching. He just walked with her, feeling the perfect fit of her hand in his, and knew he had made the right choice. But neither he nor she was prepared for the storm that was about to break over them. The storm arrived in the form of an anonymous email sent to the entire board of Brand Capital. Raphael received the copy on Thursday morning with the subject, "Inappropriate Conduct of the CEO." The content was pure poison, accusations of harassment, abuse of power, favoritism. It implied that Marina was being forced into a relationship with him in exchange for keeping her job. It suggested an internal investigation and the possible removal of Raphael. He read it 3 times, feeling the bile rise. It wasn't just a lie, it was calculated malice. An emergency board meeting was scheduled for the afternoon of the same day. Raphael entered the conference room with his posture upright, but inside he was in a fury. The 5 board members looked at him with expressions ranging from concern to disapproval. Fernando Campos, the oldest board member and one of the original investors, went straight to the point. "Raphael, is this email true?" "It depends on what you consider true." Raphael kept his voice firm. "I am in a relationship with Marina, yes, but there is no harassment, no abuse of power, and no favoritism. It is a consensual relationship between 2 adults. She is an employee of the company, said Helena Moreira, the only woman on the board. "Even if she is outsourced, there is a clear hierarchy. Do you understand how this looks?" "I understand perfectly, and I also understand that I have a right to a personal life, not when that personal life can compromise the company's reputation," Fernando countered. "Do you know how many companies have been destroyed by scandals like this?" "Scandal? Two adults getting to know each other is a scandal now." "It is when one of them is the CEO and the other is a cleaning lady, yes." Fernando didn't hide his disdain. "Be realistic, Rafael. How do you think investors will react? How do you think the press will treat this if it leaks?" "And the solution is what? I break up with her to protect the company's image. The solution is for you to decide what is more important, the company you built or a fleeting involvement." Rafael slammed his hand on the table, losing his composure for the first time. "Fleeting involvement? You know nothing about what I'm living. Nothing." Helena intervened more softly. "Rafael, no one here is judging your feelings, but you need to understand the position this puts us in. We're already receiving questions from shareholders. The outsourced company is worried about lawsuits, and if this email leaks outside, then let it leak. I have nothing to hide. You have a company to protect," Fernando countered, "and employees who depend on it. Be responsible." The meeting ended with a veiled ultimatum. Either Rafael ended the relationship and issued a statement denying any involvement, or the board would consider more drastic measures. When he left the room, Rafael went straight to the bathroom and vomited. Not from fear, from anger. Anger at living in a world where feelings had to bow to corporate interests. Marina learned of the meeting through Seu Mario, the security guard who had heard comments. When Rafael finally managed to talk to her, it was already night. He went to her apartment in Itaquera for the first time. A simple 3-story building, no elevator, peeling walls. She opened the door with red eyes. She had been crying. "Come in," she said softly. The apartment was tiny. Living room and kitchen integrated. A bedroom she shared with her mother. Another smaller room for her brother. But it was clean, organized, with plants in the windows and photos on the wall. It had life. Marina's mother, Dona Lourdes, was in the kitchen. She looked at Rafael with a mixture of curiosity and distrust. "So you're the one named Rafael." "Good evening, Dona Lourdes." "Good evening, my foot." She dried her hands on the dish towel. "My daughter has been crying since she got home from work, because of you." "Mom?" Marina tried to intervene. "No, let me speak." Dona Lourdes approached Rafael, short but imposing. "Do you know what you're doing to her? Do you know she could lose her job? That they'll speak ill of her? That they'll destroy her reputation?" "I know, and I'll do everything I can to protect her." "Protect? How? By giving her money?" The tone was harsh. "We are poor, but we aren't without dignity. My daughter doesn't need a rich man. She needs a man who is worth something. I want to be that man." "Do you really? Or do you only want to as long as it's a novelty? Because when the game is over, you go back to your world of luxury and she stays here, branded." Rafael swallowed hard. "It's not a game, Dona Lourdes. I love your daughter." It was the first time he had said it out loud. Marina sobbed, bringing her hand to her mouth. Dona Lourdes just narrowed her eyes. "Then prove it, not with words, with actions." She left the room, leaving the two of them alone. Marina threw herself into his arms, crying. "I can't take it anymore, Rafael. At work, everyone looks at me differently. The cleaning girls barely speak to me. The employees treat me as if I were, I don't know, a gold digger." "I know, and I'm going to resolve this." How are you going to resolve the fact that we are from different worlds? How are you going to resolve that your company doesn't accept this? How are you going to resolve that my own mother thinks you're going to use me and throw me away?" "By proving that this is real, to everyone." Marina pulled away, wiping her tears. "And if it's not enough? And if in the end we get hurt so much that nothing is left? Do you want to give up?" "I want to stop suffering." The scream echoed in the small apartment. Marina was breathing fast, out of control. Rafael tried to approach, but she recoiled. "Marina, look at me." "No. Please." She finally looked up, and Rafael saw there not only pain, but exhaustion. She was tired of fighting. "I understand if you want to give up," he said, and every word hurt. "I understand if this is being too heavy, but I need you to know one thing." He took a deep breath. I spent 37 years of my life building a wall around myself. Work, money, success, all so as not to feel, so as not to get hurt. And it worked, until you appeared. He took a step closer, slowly. You tore down that wall without even trying. And now I'm here, exposed, vulnerable, in love. And yes, it hurts. But for the first time, I'm feeling that I'm truly alive. He held her face with both hands. So, if you want to give up, I will accept it. But not because it's easy, because I love you too much to force you to stay. Marina closed her eyes, tears flowing. I love you too, you idiot. Then we endure together, no matter what comes. She nodded, and they hugged there in the middle of the tiny living room, with Donna Lourdes peeking discreetly from the bedroom and Marina's brother pretending he wasn't hearing everything. On Monday, Raphael entered Brandt Capital with a decision made. He called a general meeting. All employees, from interns to directors, the main conference room was packed. When Marina entered hesitantly in her cleaning uniform, there were murmurs. Raphael signaled for her to stand at the front near him. She was pale, but she stayed. Good morning, everyone. I called this meeting to clarify some rumors that are circulating. Raphael looked around firmly. Yes, I am in a relationship with Marina. No, there is nothing improper about it. We are two free adults who met and liked each other. The silence was heavy. I know some of you have opinions about this. I know you think it's inappropriate, questionable, even scandalous. He paused. But I need to make it clear. This does not affect my work. It does not affect the company's decisions, and it is no one's business but ours. Juliana from reception raised her hand bravely. And if the outsourced company decides to fire Marina to avoid problems, then I will hire her directly, not as a cleaning employee, as an administrative consultant with a fair salary and a formal contract. There were more murmurs. Marina looked at him, agape. Any more questions? Fernando Campos, who was present, stood up. Raphael, do you understand that this could cost you your position? I understand, and if that is the price, so be it. The board member nodded slowly and left the room. When the meeting ended, Marina pulled Raphael to a corner. Are you crazy? You can't risk everything like that. I already have. He smiled, tired. And you know what? I feel lighter than I have felt in years. But the feeling of lightness didn't last long. The next day, a financial market gossip site published an article, CEO of Brandt Capital in love scandal with cleaning lady. The headline was cruel. The article worse. It insinuated that Raphael was having a midlife crisis, that Marina was an opportunist, and that the company was at risk. Brandt Capital shares fell 3%. Raphael received calls from furious investors and emails from concerned clients. His cell phone wouldn't stop ringing. And in the middle of the chaos, he looked at Marina, sitting on the sofa in his office, reading the article on her phone with silent tears flowing. Marina, it's all written here. Everything I was afraid they would say. She showed him the screen. That I'm a gold digger, that I'm after your money, that I'm the destruction of your career. It's not true. But it's what everyone will believe. She put down the phone. Raphael, you're losing everything because of me. It's not because of you, it's because of us. And what if us isn't enough? Raphael had no answer for that, because for the first time he was also afraid. That night, Marina didn't sleep at his apartment as she had planned. She went back to Itaquera, and when Raphael was left alone in his penthouse apartment, looking at São Paulo through the window, he felt the emptiness returning. And he was afraid that this time it would swallow him whole. The following week was a meticulously orchestrated hell. Each day brought a new blast of poison, comments on social media, articles on smaller blogs repeating the first one. A radio program about the financial market made a joke. It seems someone decided to invest in a new niche, conscience cleaning. Raphael held firm. He responded to investors with data, with projections, with the reality of numbers that remained solid. The drop in shares stabilized, but the pressure did not decrease. It was Fernando Campos who delivered the final blow. In a private meeting, just the two of them, he placed a document on the table. A proposal to buy your shares. Fair market value. You leave, keep your wealth, and the company is protected. Raphael read the document without expression. You want to kick me out of the company I created. I want to protect the company. And you? Fernando sighed. Raphael, be rational. You built this from scratch. It's your life. Are you going to throw it all away for a woman you met 2 months ago? It's not about time, it's about what she represents. And what does she represent? A fantasy that you can have a normal life. You are not normal, Raphael, you never were. And trying to be will destroy everything you built. Raphael remained silent for a long moment. Then he stood up. I'm not signing this. Then prepare for the board to remove you. We have the votes. So be it. When Raphael told Marina she was at his house, they had planned to have dinner together, but he arrived late, exhausted, defeated. Are they going to take you out of the company? Marina set her plate aside, pale. They're going to try. I don't know if they'll succeed, but they'll try. Because of me. Because of the relationship. It's not your fault. Marina stood up, beginning to pace back and forth. Raphael, this is madness. You can't lose everything you built. You can't. I know what I'm risking. Do you? Do you really? She stopped in front of him. Because I don't know if you understand what this means. You'll lose the company. You'll lose your reputation. You'll lose everything. And for what? For me? A cleaning lady from Itaquera? Don't talk about yourself like that. But it's the truth. That's what I am. And you... She pointed around at the luxury apartment. You are this. And as much as we want to pretend it doesn't matter, it matters. Raphael stood up, holding her shoulders. Marina, look at me. Do you think I care about all this crap? He gestured toward the apartment. I spent 30 years in this luxury prison. Alone, miserable. And I didn't realize it because I was too busy counting money. But you achieved this. With work, with sacrifice. I achieved emptiness. I achieved a life without meaning. He touched her face. And then you appeared with your irritating smile and your ability to see through me, and for the first time, I felt that I had something worth having. But it's not worth it for you to lose everything. You don't understand. Raphael stepped away, running his hand through his hair, frustrated. I already lost everything that mattered. I lost it when my father died without ever telling me he was proud of me. I lost it when I spent years building something just to prove my value to people who didn't care. I lost it every time I looked in the mirror and saw a stranger looking back. He turned to her and there were tears in his eyes. You gave me back to myself, Marina. You made me remember that I am more than numbers on a spreadsheet. And if the price of that is losing a company, then so be it. Companies I can build again, but you are unique. Marina was crying too. And if it doesn't work out? And if we separate a year from now and you're left with nothing? At least I will have lived something real. She covered her face with her hands. I'm so afraid, Raphael. Afraid of not being enough. Afraid that you'll one day wake up and realize you made a mistake. Afraid of making you lose everything and then not being able to make you happy. Raphael pulled her hands from her face, holding them firmly. You already make me happy. Every day when you smile, when you tease me, when you challenge me, when you just stay quiet by my side. He kissed her forehead. You are enough. You always were. They stayed hugged there, in the middle of the expensive and empty living room. Two worlds trying to fit together. But the outside world gave no truce. The next day, the outsourced company that employed Marina received direct pressure. Either they fired Marina, or they lost the contract with Brandt Capital and other companies in Fernando's investment group. The manager of the outsourced company called Marina personally. Look, Marina, you're a great employee, but the situation is unsustainable. I need to let you go. I understand, Marina said, and her voice came out firm despite her racing heart. You'll receive everything properly, all the severance, and if you need a reference, it's okay, thank you. When she hung up, she sat on the bed in her cramped little room and cried. Not for the job, for the weight of causing so much trouble. Raphael found out half an hour later when Marcelo informed him. The outsourced company let Marina go, probably pressure from Fernando. Son of a bitch, Raphael punched the table. He doesn't have that right. He has money and influence, that's enough. Raphael grabbed his phone and called Marina. She answered with a choked voice. I heard, I'm sorry. It wasn't your fault. It was, yes, all of this is because of me. Raphael, stop, I can't take you blaming yourself anymore. Then come here, now, we need to talk. When Marina arrived at his apartment, Raphael already had a proposal ready. A formal employment contract, administrative consultancy, a salary 3 times larger than her previous one. No, Marina pushed the papers back. Why? Because I don't want to be one of the things you buy. She was serious, firm. I don't want charity, Raphael. I don't want you to hire me because you feel guilty. It's not charity, it's a real job. Doing what? I barely finished high school. What am I going to do as a consultant in an investment firm? You can learn, you are intelligent. Or you can stop trying to fit me into your world and accept that maybe it's not possible. The silence that followed was as heavy as lead. Are you giving up? Raphael said, and it wasn't a question. Marina closed her eyes. I'm being realistic. We tried, Raphael. God knows we tried. But look at the damage we've already done. You could lose the company. I lost my job. People hate us. My mother barely speaks to me because she thinks you're going to hurt me. Your board wants to kick you out. So what? So what? Maybe the world is right. Maybe we are from worlds that don't mix. Raphael felt the ground disappear from under his feet. You don't believe that. I don't know what to believe anymore. She grabbed her bag. I need some time to think, to breathe, to understand if this is really worth it. Marina, don't do this. I need to, Raphael, for me and for you too. She went to the door, and each of her steps was like a stab. At the door she turned. I love you, never doubt that, but sometimes love isn't enough. And then she was gone. Raphael stood in the middle of the living room. He didn't cry, he didn't move, he just stayed there, feeling the emptiness returning with full force, swallowing everything. 3 days passed. 3 days in which Raphael functioned on automatic. Meetings, decisions, work. But it was like being underwater, everything muffled, distant. Marina didn't answer any calls. She didn't reply to messages. And Raphael, for the first time, did not insist, because maybe she was right. Maybe he really was being selfish, dragging her into a world that was only going to hurt her. It was Marcelo who finally shook him. He entered the office without warning, closing the door with force. You are an idiot! Raphael looked up from the documents. Excuse me? You heard me, idiot. Marcelo sat in front of him. You're here pretending to work, pretending everything is fine while the woman you love is suffering alone. She asked for time. And you gave it? Just like that, without fighting? Marcelo laughed without humor. Man, I've known you for 10 years. I've seen you fight for impossible deals. I've seen you turn failing companies into successes. I've seen you face investors, competitors, even the entire market. And now you're going to give up on the only thing that really matters because she asked for time. She's right, I'm destroying her life. No, you're giving her the chance to have a real life, with someone who loves her, who respects her, who sees her. Marcelo leaned in. But you need to fight for it. You need to show her that it's not just words, it's action. How? Figure it out. You're the business genius, not me. When Marcelo left, Raphael sat looking at the closed door. And then, for the first time in 3 days, he felt something besides emptiness. He felt determination. He grabbed his phone, but he didn't call Marina. He called his lawyer. I need you now, and bring the company documents, all of them. That night, Raphael worked until 5 in the morning. Not on spreadsheets or reports, on something much more important. And when the sun rose over São Paulo, he had a plan. A crazy, risky plan that could go wrong in 1,000 different ways. But it was the only one that made sense. Raphael called an extraordinary board meeting for Friday. Fernando arrived confident, thinking it was a surrender. The other board members were curious. No one expected what came. Raphael started without preamble. I received the proposal to buy my shares, and I have decided to accept. Fernando smiled triumphantly. A wise decision. With conditions. The smile faltered. What conditions? Raphael distributed documents. First, I am selling my shares, but not to you, to an investment fund that has already expressed interest. Price 20% above market value. What fund? Helena grabbed the document, reading fast. Peterson Capital, they are competitors, and they are going to hire me as CEO, with total autonomy. Raphael leaned in. Second condition, Brandt Capital will implement a social inclusion program, scholarships for employees at all levels, hiring quotas for low-income people, partnerships with professional training NGOs. Fernando slammed the document on the table. This is blackmail. No, it's a condition. You want to get me out of here? Great. But you're going to do it the right way, and you're going to leave a legacy that matters. And if we refuse? I exercise my rights as a founder. I take half the clients with me to Peterson, and I will publicly expose that you tried to force me to end a consensual personal relationship, transforming this into a case of corporate moral harassment." Raphael didn't blink. Imagine the headline. Silence. Helena was the first to speak. "Are you willing to destroy what you built because of this?" "I'm not going to destroy it. I'm going to rebuild. In another place, with other rules. But if I can do that while leaving something positive here, all the better." Fernando looked around, seeing that he had lost control of the situation. "You've gone mad." "No, I woke up." Raphael stood up. "I have until Monday to receive your response. After that, Peterson's offer expires, and I will take other measures." He left the meeting feeling lighter than he had felt in months. The result didn't matter. He had made the right decision. But the most important part was still missing. Marina was in her small apartment in Itaquera, helping her mother sew. It was Sunday afternoon. She tried to keep busy, but her head wouldn't stop. It had been 4 days since she left Raphael's apartment. 4 days without talking to him. 4 days wondering if she had done the right thing. When the doorbell rang, she didn't even imagine who it could be. She opened the door and stood paralyzed. Raphael was there. Not the executive Raphael in an impeccable suit, but Raphael in jeans and a t-shirt with messy hair, deep dark circles under his eyes, and in his eyes a mixture of fear and determination. "Hi," he said. "Hi." Marina held the door. "What are you doing here?" "I needed to see you, to tell you something." "Raphael, I asked for time." "I know, and I respected that. But I also needed you to know about a decision I made." Donna Lourdes appeared behind Marina. "Let him in, girl. It's not polite to leave a visitor in the hallway." Marina hesitated but made way. Raphael entered, greeted Donna Lourdes with respect, and stood in the living room, clearly uncomfortable but determined. "You can speak," Marina said, crossing her arms. "I sold my shares in Brandt Capital." Marina blinked, not understanding. "What?" "I sold them to a competing company. I leave on Monday with an offer to be CEO there." But it was your company. You built that." "It was a prison, and I needed to get out of it to truly live." He took a step closer. "But before leaving, I set conditions. The company will create a social inclusion program, scholarships, hiring quotas, partnerships with NGOs. It will help people like you have opportunities they didn't have." Marina felt her eyes sting. "Why did you do that?" "Because you were right. The world I built was exclusionary, cold, inhuman. And if I'm going to start over, I want it to be different." He held her hands. "I want to build something that has meaning, and I want to do it with you by my side." "Raphael." "Let me finish, please." He took a deep breath. "I know you're afraid. I am too. Afraid of not being enough, of disappointing you, of not being able to make you happy. But I also know one thing. Without you, none of this matters. Money, success, power, all empty." Donna Lourdes, who pretended to sew but heard everything, cleared her throat. "Can I give my opinion?" The two looked at her. "Marina, this man came here to our neighborhood, without a driver, without pomp, to admit he was wrong and that he changed. How many men do you know who do that?" She set her sewing aside. "I didn't trust him at first. I thought he was going to hurt you. But I was wrong." She looked at Raphael. "You proved you're a real man, not because of the money, but because of your character." Marina was crying now. "Mom!" "And you, my daughter, deserve to be happy. You deserve someone who truly sees you." Donna Lourdes stood up. "I'm going out to buy bread. I'll be about 30 minutes. She left, leaving the two of them alone. Marina wiped her tears with the back of her hand. "You sold your company for me." "I sold my company for us. For a chance to start over, right?" Raphael touched her face. "Marina, I spent my whole life making safe, calculated, cold choices, and in the end it was just existence. It wasn't life. And if it doesn't work out, and if we try and fail, then we fail knowing that we truly tried, that we didn't give up at the first obstacle." He rested his forehead against hers. "But I don't want to fail. I want to spend the rest of my life making you happy, supporting you, loving you." "I love you too," Marina sobbed. "So much it hurts. Then come back to me, and we face everything together." Marina pulled him into a kiss. It wasn't delicate, it was desperate, full of all the emotions bottled up over the last few days. Fear, love, relief, desire, everything mixed together. When they pulled apart, both were out of breath. "I'll come back," she whispered, "on one condition." "Anything. No hiring me at the new company, no giving me a job out of pity. I'm going to find my own way, study, graduate, grow in my own way." Raphael smiled. "Deal. But can I help you pay for college?" "You can, as an investment, and I'll pay you back when I graduate. An investment with emotional return. The best kind." They laughed, and it was good to laugh together again. On Monday, the board of Brandt Capital accepted Raphael's conditions, not because they wanted to, but because the alternative was worse. Raphael signed the papers, passed the baton, and left the Faria Lima building for the last time as the owner. Marina was waiting on the sidewalk. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Free." They walked down the avenue holding hands, and no one recognized them. They were just one more couple among millions in São Paulo. 3 months later, Raphael took over as CEO of Peterson Capital with a bold project: to transform the management firm into a company with real social responsibility. Marina enrolled in a pre-college preparatory course, determined to study literature. They moved in together to a smaller, cozier apartment in Perdizes. It wasn't easy. There were difficult days, adjustments, concessions. But there were also laughs, simple dinners that were worth more than banquets, mornings waking up together, nights talking until late. A year later, Marina passed the entrance exam. Raphael was in the front row of the freshman ceremony, applauding like crazy. Donna Lourdes was beside him, crying with pride. 2 years later, Raphael was invited to give a lecture at a university about corporate transformation. Marina was in the audience, smiling. When he talked about how a cleaning lady had changed his life, he wasn't ashamed. He was proud. In the 3rd year, they got married. A simple ceremony in the same building in Itaquera, where they had reunited on that Sunday afternoon. The guests were family and true friends. Marcelo was the best man. Donna Lourdes cried through the entire ceremony. When they exchanged rings, Raphael looked into Marina's eyes and saw everything that mattered. Not the woman who cleaned floors, not the CEO's wife. Just Marina, the woman who had saved him from a life without life. And Marina looked at Raphael and saw not the powerful and distant man she had met in that hallway at Brandt Capital. She saw the man who had chosen love over fear, truth over convenience, life over existence. At the party, simple but joyful while they danced to a samba song she had chosen, Raphael whispered in her ear, "Do you think it was worth it? All the suffering, all the struggle?" Marina smiled, that smile that melted all his defenses. "Every second, and you?" "Every second." He pulled her closer. "And if I could go back in time, I would do it all again. Every choice, every risk, every moment of fear, everything to get here with you." "Liar." She laughed. "You would skip straight to the good part." "Maybe. But the bad parts made the good ones even better." They continued dancing, 2 worlds that learned to mix, 2 people who chose to be vulnerable, imperfect, and true. Months later, sitting on the balcony of the apartment, watching São Paulo stretch across the horizon, Marina commented, "Do you miss it? Brandt, the power, all of that?" Raphael thought for a moment. "No, not at all." "Really?" "Really. You know what I miss? I miss the thinking that I needed that to be someone." He held her hand. "You taught me that I am someone because of who I choose to be, not because of what I have." Marina rested her head on his shoulder. "And I learned that I can dream bigger, that my origin doesn't define my future." We grew together, and we'll keep growing. Yes, they continued to. Marina graduated in literature, began teaching, and later wrote a book about her story that became a small success. Raphael transformed Peterson into a reference in social impact investments. They created a foundation together, helping low-income youth gain access to education. But more than anything, they built a life. Real, imperfect, true. A life made of conscious choices, of love that did not ask permission to happen, of 2 worlds that refused to remain separate. And when people asked how they managed it, the answer was always the same. They chose. They chose each other every day, in the easy days and the difficult days, when everything seemed impossible and when everything made sense. Because in the end, Love wasn't about being from the same world, it was about creating a new world together. And they created it. A world where a cleaning lady and a CEO could simply be Marina and Raphael. Two people who found each other when they least